This is a TripleJ podcast.
Hey, it's David Marchese. This is the Hack Podcast. Do you find it easy to talk to your mates about money? Because finances can put a strain on friendships. There's no doubt about that. How do you reckon you and your friends would go challenging yourselves to be as stingy as possible? Kind of the opposite of some of the issues people generally have. Like you're being really tight on purpose. It's a good thing. It's not Feb Fast, it's not Dry July, we're talking about Penniless March, an idea that's popped up. Later we're going to be speaking to a group of mates who've been doing it a whole month without tapping their cards, spending on frivolous things, or really spending it all. How easy has it been? How are they finding it?
Hack
Just trying to minimise how much you're spending and trying to avoid taking off other people.
on TripleJ.
Yeah, we love a month of self-improvement, don't we? Like, surely at some point you've got around Dry July or Feb Fast, Sober October, one of those. What do you think about this challenge, though? No coffees out, no beers, no gigs, not even going to the shop for a few extra ingredients. Could you go a month without tapping your cards, spending any money? You're probably thinking, that's impossible. How would I do that? Well, a group of friends in WA have set themselves a challenge to do it. They're curious to see how this is going to impact their savings, but also their social lives, whether it changes how they're interacting with each other, if they're happier or more depressed. I'm curious to hear if you think this could be you, if you would like to give it a go. Maybe you've tried something similar with your friends. Get in touch, 0439757555. Alice Angeloni has a story.
I'm just grabbing a coffee. I tap my card. There goes another $6. It's not financially savvy, I know, but it's a habit and a ritual with friends and colleagues. So I was intrigued to hear about a group of people about my age where I live in Geraldton who are challenging themselves to stop spending on non-essentials for a whole month.
We had a mate in January that was trying to avoid spending money, and it just sort of gave me the spark for the idea of March to try and do something similar, but to a bit of a further extent.
Feeling a bit inspired, I caught up with 24-year-old physio Aaron.
My friend Callum here was also reading up on different ways to sort of challenge yourself as well, and the benefits of giving yourself a challenge throughout your life and just getting uncomfortable.
They're calling it Penniless March. For the most part, this group of friends are young professionals and they acknowledge that going without isn't a choice right now for lots of people. This month, they'll still spend on bills and have a few exceptions.
Because they're something that we can't necessarily control. So bills are an exception, and we're each allowed 2 different voids, so sort of exceptions that we can personally choose throughout the month.
Anthea is a speech pathologist and saving her money this month as well.
One of my voids is fresh vegetables, so I can still go out to the local market and get some fresh veg throughout the month, and the other one is fuel for my car because I need it for work.
So buying nothing but some fresh veg, some fuel. The main question on my mind is, what's the motivator here?
I think that with this is a way to keep that focus, but also bring in that friendship component and try and have as much fun as you can in the month of March without having that kind of money being the thing that's driving the fun.
For them, this challenge is about getting uncomfortable and challenging some social norms around money that have become a big part of our lives. Callum is trying to call out just how much spending goes hand in hand with socialising.
I like kind of challenging the status quo. I definitely, well, not necessarily Dry July, but I've done months where I haven't drunk. But I feel like we've just got these norms of whether it's purchasing certain things or whether it's kind of drinking at every social event that aren't necessarily healthy for us or our mental health. So I feel like this is a great kind of idea just to challenge that and say, is this actually going to make me happy, or is it just because everyone else is doing it?
The Penniless March crew are still catching up with their other mates, like here at their regular cafe. But while their friends are buying coffees, they're just there for the hangout.
I'm trying to just be there and sort of, as Callum mentioned before, just try to break that sort of norm that you can partake in these sort of social events without purchasing things, and not necessarily that's the reason why we're doing it at all, but just sort of challenging it.
So how are they actually going about cutting their spending for the month?
I think we've gone about it in different ways. We've gone down 2 separate paths. prior to the month of March, I made a lot of frozen meals. I've got some bulk sauce, I've got a couple curries, I've got a lasagna, and I've got some shredded chicken. That's sort of the extent of my pre-cooked meals. And I've also got some fresh food as well to make as well. So hopefully that'll get me over the line.
Anthea admits access to the coast off Geraldton will also be a big help.
That's another little challenge I've set myself, that I'll try and go out and spear or catch some fish or some crayfish that we've got so much of here in Geraldton. So I'll be able to use natural resources that I don't need to go out and buy, and I can have a fun time catching it.
For this Penniless March crew, they don't know how the rest of the month will unfold, but they're certainly hoping they'll end up with more savings.
Hopefully come April, I will have a greater appreciation for where I put that money into local vendors or spending a bit more wisely to survive that cost of living increases.
You're listening to Hack on Triple J.
Alice Angeloni with that story. So many interesting messages coming through. Someone on the text line, Jessie from Brisbane, says, I found myself wondering where all my money kept going. Recently, Mum has taken over and gives me an allowance, essentially, really helping me recognise where I'm losing cash. Loving the Bank of Mums. That's working for Jessie. Amber from Kingscliff says, I would love to do that. Don't think it would be that hard. Different to normal life, but would probably make us happier with less, to be honest. A lot of you also saying, hey, I'm doing this already, but I don't mean to be doing it. It's just because I've got no monies to spend. It is Penniless March all the time. Fully here with that. Let's get into this a bit more with a financial therapist, Jane Monica Jones, who can unpack a bit more the psychology behind spending and friendships as well. Jane, thanks for coming on Hack.
Great to be here, thank you.
What do you think of these trends like the one we just heard of, Penniless March, helping young people save some money and maybe form some new financial habits?
Love it, absolutely love it. I think we're a total culture of spending, so if we're going to turn that around, not only is it going to set people up for the short term, but also the long term as well. So I'm really encouraged by it.
Do you think it can help build sustainable financial habits?
Yes, it does. I mean, there's a lot of research on habit building. If you practice something 21 days, it would pretty much stick with you. Just as the habit of spending has become a bit of a habit that, when I'm bored, when I need to self-soothe, when I want to, feel better about myself, I think saving can be that same habit building piece that we can take on. And it does. We get set for, I'm not going to spend, I'm going to save instead. So I just think it's all positivity practices there. It's really fantastic.
Well, I was going to ask, is there any negatives to this? Like, could it be a bit of a challenge if you're all of a sudden suddenly changing your habits? Could that have an impact on, I don't know, whether it's your mental health or whatever, if, you're used to spending money, used to having stuff available to you, and then all of a sudden you're not?
Yeah, it does. There's something that, I often work with is our financial saboteur. And that happens when we try to seek change in our life. Our saboteur will come in and, kibosh all our fabulous plans. So what we need to do, if we're going to change something or do something a little bit different, we do a small change rather than a massive. Because if it's massive, like, I'm going to pay off all my debt, then we leave ourselves short for not having any money for emergencies or maybe even a bit of fun, which is really important for our mental health. We then sabotage our goal of paying off debt. So we need to do little increments and make sure that they're sustainable. Otherwise, we're going to be sabotaging our fabulous, hopes and dreams, basically.
The financial saboteur sounds a bit sinister. I definitely met that person before, creeping in, trying to get me to do the wrong thing. I wonder, there's a lot of pressure to spend money through socialising, as we've just heard, Jane. Like, especially young people feel this need to be spending a lot when they're out with friends. If they don't, they feel like they're not getting the same experience. What's your advice for young Australians who might be struggling with this conundrum?
Yeah, look, it kind of goes to that sort of mental health thing. I think self-esteem is a really important thing that we need to have, not only for our financial well-being, but just, our general mental health. Financial well-being is that capacity to have our beliefs and stick to them, be able to put boundaries up against those peer pressures. If we're feeling a bit shaky about who we are and our levels of confidence, it's going to be really difficult for us to say, hey, friends, I don't want to participate. So working on things that are really good for our self-esteem and self-confidence is a way that gives us a bit more muscle to put up those financial boundaries that we may need to put up, to say, you know what, I'm actually taking the cheap option. I'm not going to come out to dinner or something like that. Wherever we can build up, our confidence in our finances and putting up boundaries is going to really help, because peer pressure is heavy. It's hard. It's hard to say no. We want to get along and we want to be accepted. So working on our self-confidence and our self-esteem is a really good thing to do.
Do you have any advice for people on how to bring up these conversations? If you want to tell your mates, hey, I can't spend what you can because I don't earn as much as you do, or maybe it's the other way as well, how should you do it?
Difficult conversations need to happen in light and good times. When things are light, it's really great to suggest these hard conversations. When we're all emotive and we're feeling overwhelmed, things just don't come out as well. They might not land the way that we want to land. So if we can bring those things up when we're feeling good, that's a good way to do it, rather than when it's Friday night and you know that everybody's going to be ringing and saying, hey, you're going to come out, and you're going, oh, I'm totally overwhelmed. We're just sort of setting ourselves up for failure in that way. So when things are light and good for us in our relationship field or intimate relationship, that's the good time to do hard conversations.
All right, so not necessarily when the bill arrives at the table and you're freaking out.
No.
That's not the best time to bring it up. We appreciate your take, as always, Jane Monica Jones, financial therapist. Thanks for coming on Hack.
Thanks.
Hack on Triple J.
And people with some different opinions. Someone says, this is great. It's so true. The social pressure to spend socially, very frustrating, ends up putting financial pressure on in other areas. That's what Kaz says. But then someone else says, this is a fantastic way to screw the economy, Penniless March, if everyone gets on board. However, it is a great way to save. And then another person says, not sure the cafe would be impressed with a bunch of people socialising in the cafe and not buying anything. Maybe just socialise at home so the cafe can pay their bills. Hey, that's a fair enough point as well. I doubt you'll be getting many smiles from cafe staff if you're just using up their chairs and not buying anything. It's an interesting point though, and people are saying they're struggling, they're trying everything out to save some cash, and making it a competition could be an easy way of making it a bit easier. That's all we've got time for on the podcast for now. I'll catch you tomorrow. See ya.